Hi everybody, welcome back. This is lesson video for lesson number 16, which is connected to Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, chapter 6. So you should have already read that on your own or watched the video that was read for you before you attempt this lesson. And it's going to be a good one. We're talking about theme, which is one of my most favorite things to discuss and work on in literature. So let's dive right in. So, like I said, today we are working with the Lightning Thief, chapter 6. So make sure that you've already read that, either by watching the video and reading along or reading it on your own. Our goal today is we're going to determine a theme in a story by noticing what the main character learns about themselves. And the reason why we're practicing this is that is, again, we've talked about this quite a few times now, this idea of theme, which we know is a deeper truth or a lesson or truth about life that everyone can use all the time to improve their life. That's the main reason why we read fiction. We read fiction to hear stories, and when we read stories, we can use what the characters learn about themselves to learn similar things about ourselves and the world, and so that we can make the world into what we want it to be, or make ourselves into what we want it, who we want to be. And that's why we read stories. And so that's why we're going to practice that, so that we can practice finding a theme. And when we practice finding a theme, we can analyze it and then apply it to our own lives too. So that'll be our exit ticket today. We're going to name a theme topic that emerges in 85 to 92, and then explain what Percy learns and how two details from the text support the theme. And so, as always, we'll be diving into the text, so make sure while you're doing this, you either have the video of the text or just the PDF electronic version, so that you can go back into the text and find your details to prove it. Great. First vocabulary, as always. The first word is lethal, which means intended to cause or capable of causing death or extreme harm. A lethal dose of poison is a dose that can kill someone. So a lethal just means trying to kill. Second word is bizarre, which means very strange or unusual, especially in appearance or behavior. Someone that does something that you don't expect them to do and it looks a little weird, you might be like, yeah, it's a little bizarre. The third word is critically, looking for a fault. That happens when you are feeling bad, or you and your friend are doing something, maybe dancing, we'll say that, and you dance for a little bit, and then it's their turn, they go up and do their dance video, and you want to be better than them, so you are critically looking to see if they made a mistake. Right, then number 4, the word is primal, which means earliest or original. Some people refer to our sense of hunger, of needing to eat, as our primal instinct. It's the very earliest thing that we developed as animals or as people. Our need to eat or need to drink as primal. Number 5, the word is impulsive, which just means acting without thinking or planning. If you are going about your life and all of a sudden you decide you want to do something but you don't think about it, you just go and do it. Being impulsive. Number 6 is pulverize, which means to destroy. Not just a little bit, too. If you pulverize something, you're like beating it into the dust. It's destroyed. And then these words are a little bit more specific, and you're not going to see them that often, but they're good to know to help you understand the story and especially visualize the setting. The 7 is armory. It's a place where weapons and other military equipment are made or stored. So anytime there is an army, the weapons that they use, whether they're guns or axes or whatever time period, it's just a place where their weapons can be made and put away so people know where to get them. Number 8, the word is mausoleum, which is a large or elaborate tomb, or the structure that houses such a tomb. If you've ever been to a graveyard, most people's gravestones are small. They're maybe 1.5 feet tall. But you may notice that there's some places in the cemetery where there's very, very, very big statues or buildings that house people who have died, and that is a mausoleum. It's a very fancy gravestone. And then this word is abalone, a large sea snail that has several shiny colors on the inside of its shell. And so if you've ever seen a really pretty sea snail or a sea shell that kind of circles around like that, that's what that is. All right. Getting our brains activated says, in today's text, Percy doesn't understand how he fits in at Camp Half-Blood. He doesn't even know what group in which he belongs. To what groups do you belong? So just think about some of the groups that you belong to, and then write them down and come on back. Awesome. Now that you're back, Again, the groups that you belong to are many. You could be part of a sports team that probably isn't playing right now, but if you're part of a sports team, that's a group. If you belong to a family, that's a group. Being part of this class means you're a group in this classroom. Groups I belong to a Dungeons and Dragons group, which is a game that we play together. I belong to a group of friends that meets regularly to spend time with our kids. And I am in a group with a bunch of teachers that we work together to improve our teaching. So I'm a bunch of groups. Everyone's in a bunch of groups, even if you don't think that you're in a bunch of groups. Awesome. Let's dive in. These thinking questions are going to help and drive us directly to our exit ticket. But before we do that, again, I'm just going to remind ourselves what our goal is and do a quick lesson, which should look very familiar to many of you, especially if you were around for the end of Tolliver's Secret, our seed to theme strategy. So our objective today is we're going to infer a theme from a text, and we're going to use the seed to theme strategy to do that. And if you look at the objective on the worksheet, it said we're going to use what a character learns about themselves. You'll see that come up in a little bit. So some key terms that we need to know. A theme, which is a word that we've seen a bunch of times. A deeper lesson or truth about life that everyone can use all the time to improve their life. And then, again, just some common themes that we've seen throughout our books that we've read so far and other books. Hard work pays off. We can accomplish more when we work together. Doing the right thing often requires sacrifice. The more you do something, the easier that thing becomes. If you believe in yourself, you can accomplish anything. Sometimes we have to overcome our fears to serve a bigger cause. And we saw these from the books that we've read, and we've seen these. These are very common themes throughout lots of literature. And so we're going to hopefully come up with a theme that the text is showing in this chapter. That sounds like that. So, reminder of the strategy that we use. It's called seed to theme. And it's why it's called this is because we start with the seed or a topic of an idea. And these are usually very big ideas that can apply to a lot of things. Things like truth or freedom, justice, kindness, growing up. The one that I'm going to teach about today is another one of these that's a really, really big topic or idea. You'll find these by noticing repeated patterns or problems in a text. If you continuously see similar things, that's probably similar patterns or things happening over and over in text. It's probably a theme that the author is trying to push. And then same thing here. Notice topics or ideas that are brought up often in a text. So if the character is constantly trying to be just and help people who are not being treated fairly, justice might be the idea that we see over and over and over again. And so when we can find these big ideas, then we can grow them into a theme, right? So we take these seeds and then they grow into full themes. So these examples are from freedom. So a theme is not just freedom. A theme is if people want to be free, they need to make sacrifice, or if one person is not free, no one is free. And so these are full theme statements that was taken from this big idea of a freedom. And so how do we grow an idea? And this is what I talked about earlier. What does the character learn about themselves or the world? We're really going to focus on this today with Percy. What's something that he learns about himself, and how does that point to a theme? Similar things here. How does a character solve their problem? Maybe they don't learn something about themselves, but they solve a problem in a certain way. That can teach us a lesson about life. Or sometimes even more importantly, if they don't solve a problem, we can learn not to do that. And we can also see this with their character traits, kind of traits that the character shows, or also how a character's perspective or belief change. So if they believe one thing, but then because of some kind of circumstance, they start to believe something different, we can take the lesson from that and maybe learn and have the same perspective change as them. Like I mentioned before, we're really going to focus on this, growing the idea here, but what does the character learn about themselves? And I think that will help us find not only what the topic is, but then grow that topic into a full theme. All right. We'll be referring back to this later in the lesson, but here we go. What does Percy learn from Chiron about the value? Actually, let's start with our exit ticket first. So again, name a theme topic that emerges from 85 to 92. Explain what Percy learns and how two details from the text support the theme. So when it says theme topic, where the theme topic is like that big idea: freedom, justice, kindness, whatever it happens to be. And then we're going to grow that theme topic into a theme and then find some details from the text to support that theme. These questions will help guide us to do that. All right, so first, what does Percy learn from Chiron about the value of knowledge to the gods? Explain. And so throughout this chapter, Percy has a conversation with Chiron about a couple different things. And so the question is worded a little strangely. When we say Percy learns from Chiron about the value of knowledge to the gods, it was asking, what do the gods think about knowledge? Do they value it? They think it's important, or do they not value knowledge? Do they think knowledge is not important? And Chiron tells Percy what is true about the gods, and then explain how you know that. So I know the question is a little bit confusing, but it will guide you in the right direction. So take a few moments, pause the video, and dive back into your text to see what you see. Awesome. Now that you're back, I'm going to show you what I found. And again, like I said, I think this is a little tricky, but boop, up here, Chiron and Percy are having a discussion, and Percy figures out that he is Chiron from the stories, the centaur who trained Hercules and was involved in a lot of the other heroes. And these things happened thousands of years ago. So he's asked, but shouldn't you be dead? And here's how Chiron responds. He says, I honestly don't know about should be. The truth is, I can't be dead. You see, aeons ago, the gods granted my wish. I could continue the work I loved. I could be a teacher of heroes as long as humanity needed me. Okay. And so this shows that Chiron, I'm not sure why I'm scrolling up, sorry. Chiron lives forever now because he needs to be around to train heroes. The gods thought it was really important that heroes would be trained, and they know Chiron was a good teacher, so they let him live forever. He could continue the work he loved. He could be a teacher of heroes as long as humanity needed me. And so that shows us that Percy learns that knowledge is very important to the gods. It's so important that they would allow someone to kind of be like them, to live forever, because he has knowledge to pass on to heroes. Right? And so that's what my response is here. And this might not seem particularly important to a theme, but you'll see it all connects. Percy learns that the gods valued knowledge very much. This is true because they the gods made Chiron immortal so he could pass his knowledge onto future heroes who need to learn to be heroic. So that's one thing that Percy learns kind of about himself, but also just about the world and what the gods in this story value, that knowledge is important. Knowledge is powerful. Okay? So, we're going to now go to the next one. What happens in this chapter that is similar to something that happened to Percy on his school field trip? Give examples to explain. Okay? So, this is going to help us find the big idea or the theme topic. Again, noticing repeated patterns of problems in the text, or topics or ideas that are brought up often in the text. So if we can think about something that happened in this chapter that happened in earlier chapters too, maybe we can connect that theme. So take a moment, or sorry, not connect the theme, but find the topic of the theme that the author is trying to put forth. So pause the video now, look back in your text. Great. And now that you're back, the connection you should have found is actually toward the end of the chapter. Where to go? There, here. And I won't read the whole thing, but I'll read certain parts of it. Earlier in the book, when Percy was on the field trip, chapter 1 was on the field trip with his class, the bully, Nancy Bobbiffet, came over and tried to mess with Percy, and she got sprayed by a bunch of water from the fountain. In this chapter, another bully, Clarice, here was trying to put Percy's head in the toilet, and then this is what happens. Then something happened. I felt a tug in the pit of my stomach. I heard the plumbing rumble, the pipes shudder. Clarice's grip on my hair loosened. Water shot out of the toilet, making an arc straight over my head, and the next thing I knew, I was sprawled in the bathroom tiles with Clarice screaming behind me. I turned just as water blasted out of the toilet again, hitting Clarice straight in the face so hard it pushed her down onto her butt. The water stayed on her like the spray from a fire hose, pushing her backward into a shower stall. And so this is a bit more detailed about what was happening this time than the first time. But again, it seems like Percy is being bullied or attacked, and he somehow uses the water to fend off his attacker. And so that's in this chapter, Percy somehow uses water to beat back an attacker. And Clarice, geez, my typing is not getting better, tries to stick his head in the toilet. Percy summons the water from the toilets and showers and sprays her like a fire hose. In the first chapter, when Nancy Bobofit came after Percy, she was blasted by the fountain. All right. So we're seeing that this keeps happening, that when Percy is in danger, he has this weird power that makes the water around him work to protect him. Right? So you might start to see a topic that's starting to repeat here. Here we said the gods value knowledge very much, that knowledge is powerful. Right? Knowledge is important. And here again we're seeing that Percy has this strange power to control water when he's in a desperate situation. And so notice that both of these things are giving us some idea of power. All right, we're going to see what this last part, what Percy learns about himself from Annabeth, and that might connect as well. So go ahead and pause the video for a moment, go back and look. What does Percy learn about himself from Annabeth? And now that you're back, here's what I found. It's a little bit earlier in the chapter when Percy and Annabeth were talking. He learns kind of two different things. He first learns that the things that he used to think were disabilities, that he was diagnosed with dyslexia, his inability to read, and then his ADHD, where he's very hyperactive and having a hard time focusing on things. He, early in the book, said these were the reasons why he was not doing well in school. But then down here, this is what Annabeth tells him. Taken together, it's almost a sure sign. The letters float off the page when you read, right? That's because your mind is hardwired for ancient Greek. And the ADHD, you're impulsive, can't sit still in the classroom. That's your battlefield reflexes. In a real fight, they'd keep you alive. As for the attention problems, that's because you see too much, Percy, not too little. Your senses are better than a regular mortal's. Of course the teachers want you medicated. Most of them are monsters. They don't want you to seeing them for what they are. And so he learns that these quote-unquote disabilities that he has aren't actually disabilities. They're his body being, and his person and his brain being set to do something else. Not sit in a classroom, but be a hero, to go out and fight monsters and be heroic. Right? And then, so he learns that his disabilities aren't actually disabilities. They're actually almost superpowers that are going to help him in his life, as the next thing that he is told about himself down here is that he's a half-blood. He's half human and half god. So he learns that he's half human, half god, and that the things that he thought were disorders are actually powers that he has because he is a half-blood. And so that's what I'm going to put. Percy learns two things. He learns that he is a half-blood. He also learns that the things he thought of as disabilities are actually more like superpowers that can help him live the life of a half-blood hero. And we can dive in a little bit more. His ADHD isn't an inability to focus. It's actually that he sees too many things. Sees too many things, which will help him if he has to battle monsters or find them hiding in the world. Great. So he finds out that he is indeed not a troubled kid as he thought in the beginning, that he actually has a lot of power or powers because of his half-blood heritage. Because he's a half-blood. Cool. So I've kind of helped out with your exit ticket already by finding, even though we didn't even type it out that much or talk about it, that the common thread through all these things is power. Right? Knowledge is a form of power. He has special powers to control the water. And down here, his disabilities aren't just, they're not actually disabilities. They're actually powers that are going to help him be more heroic as a half-blood. And so, to me, that would be the theme topic that we're finding here in this chapter, this topic of power. Now, you, for your exit ticket, can decide how you want to grow that idea of power into a theme. There's lots of different themes that revolve around power. And so, and you can even, if you want, if you answer these very differently, you may find a theme about bullying, because in both chapters he faces a bully. You might find another different theme about knowledge, because knowledge is a theme topic as well. And so go ahead and, as you're writing up your theme, as long as you do these things, you name a topic, you talk about what either we learn or the characters learns, and identify the theme and support that theme, your themes can be very, very different than mine. So take a couple minutes now, use the text, use your own thinking, pause the video, and go ahead with your exit ticket. All right, now that you're back, I'm going to show you how I worked through my thinking when it came to this and a theme of power. And then if yours is very similar, great. And if it's not, then you at least have an example of what a strong one looks like. And if you did your own theme, how you could word yours to make it strong. So I'm going to do the first thing. I'm going to name the main topic, which I said again is power. I think the theme topic of this chapter is power. Okay. And then I'm actually going to grow off that. I think the theme the author is trying to prove is that power can come in many forms. Okay. So this is the theme topic, power, and now the full theme is that power can come in many forms. That is a lesson that I think everyone can use throughout their life. A lot of times people think of power, they think of just like physical power and strength or superpowers, but actually they can come in a lot of different ways. Right? And here I go to explain. I think this because Chiron tells Percy that he has been given immortality to pass on his knowledge to heroes as long as they need him. The text says, because we're going to detail, so I want to prove it. I'm going to come right into here. This was from question number 1, so it's going to be up here. I'm going to go away from adding notes. There we go. Go away notes. I don't want to add notes anymore. I just want to highlight. So right here I could copy, put it here. So the text says, I continue the work I love. I can be a teacher of heroes as long as humanity needed me. This shows that knowledge can be powerful because the gods want to pass it on for a long time to help their children. Also, I'm going to say also, like additionally, power can come, sorry, I should say, this chapter shows that power can come in many forms because Percy learns that his, I'm going to put them in quotes, disabilities, because they're not really disabilities. His disabilities are actually powers that he'll need in the future. Annabeth tells him, and also a way to quote we haven't really talked about, but you can just say if a character is saying it from the book, you can say what they said. Let's go back and find it. Right here. As for attention problems, that's because you see too much, Percy, not too little. Here we go. As for the attention problems, that's because you see too much, Percy, not too little. Your senses are better than a regular mortal's. This shows that Percy actually has power in something that a lot of people think would be a disadvantage. This is why, these reasons, and we'll just finish it off. These reasons are why I think the theme of this chapter is power comes in many forms. All right, let's see. Name the main topic. Do we do it? Yep, power. Did we tell what a character or reader learns? We sure did. Percy learns that his disabilities are actually powers that he'll need in the future. Identifies the author's message about the theme. We did that twice. Power comes in many forms. Power can come in many forms. And then we gave details from the text that supported the stated theme, showing that these different forms of power, both knowledge and the abilities that Percy has, are both different forms of power. All right, we did it. So if your response looks like this, you should feel very proud. Again, I think there's a bunch of themes that pop up in this chapter. It can be the theme of, you can go more off power, more of just knowledge is power. You can say the theme of it's important to know yourself and talk about that, because when Percy starts to learn more about himself, he is better able to understand his situation. It can be a theme of bullying, that bullies always get what's coming to them, or bullies should get what's coming to them. There's a whole bunch of different themes, as long as they're messages that are true. Here, I'm going to switch to this screen for a little second. As long as if they're truths or lessons about life that can be used by everyone all the time, then it's a good theme, and you can back it up. That's great. I can't wait to see what you write. The next lesson is actually directly tied back into this chapter, and then one page from the Gods and Goddesses from Olympus that I'll post as well. So we can spend a little bit more time in this chapter and then move on to the next two. So I hope that you thought this lesson was interesting, and we'll catch you next time.